When did your best friend reveal they were engaged to your ex-husband and pregnant? I am literally sitting in the luxury suite bathroom on this stupid cruise ship, hiding behind the shower curtain, typing this out on my dying iPhone 14. Battery health is at 78%. I need to upgrade, because if I have to hear the word baby moon one more time, I might actually throw my Talenti gelato straight at Christopher's face. I just found out my ex-husband, Christopher Reed, 65M, is engaged to my best friend Nancy Young, 54F, and get this, she's claiming to be pregnant. She announced it right after the welcome reception while wearing a horrifying kaftan I helped her buy at Nordstrom Rack back in 2021. And I swear to God the timeline makes zero sense. Christopher and I signed the final divorce papers on Tuesday at 11:47 a.m. exactly 5 weeks ago. I don't even know where to start. Maybe with the obvious fact that I am Aaron Brown, 57M, the single-parent warrior who spent 20 years trying to drag Christopher's lazy butt into adulthood, only to finally realize I was raising 2 kids instead of 1. Past me was such an idiot. We were together since fall 2019, married for 5 years last June, and honestly, the last year was just misery. He was what I now know is called a breadcrumber. He would dangle promises, a new house, a vacation, helping me with the $1,247 rent on apartment 3B, but whenever I tried to pin him down, it was always, later honey, after I sort out my finances. Spoiler alert, his finances were never sorted. The reason I even booked this horrific overpriced Caribbean cruise was supposed to be a divorce scadion with Nancy, 54F. Nancy, my ride or die. Nancy, who helped me move his stupid IKEA furniture out of the condo. Nancy, who was constantly sending me links to articles about the deep state and lizard people. She is, and I say this with love, a committed conspiracy theorist, but she was my conspiracy theorist. She was the one who was supposed to be slamming margaritas with me and raging about how Christopher was literally the worst. We planned this trip 2 months ago. I cashed in 47 PTO hours and used 3 vacation days. We booked a standard balcony room. The whole package cost $3,400, split right down the middle, $1,700 each, paid via 3 separate Zelle transactions because my bank has weird daily limits. I was so excited. I even bought a new swimsuit at Target. So fast forward to last Saturday. I show up at the port in Miami, dragging my overly large suitcase. I packed too much, obviously, and waiting for Nancy near the check-in desk. My stomach was dropping immediately because standing next to her wasn't her beat-up Toyota Corolla, but Christopher's ridiculously expensive BMW that he claims he can't afford the maintenance on. I walked up and they were smiling this sickening proprietary smile. "Aaron, oh my God," Nancy shrieked, giving me a hug that felt weirdly like a pat-down. She was wearing a new Apple Watch, which was bizarre because she swore she'd never wear a tracking device for the man. Then Christopher, 65M, stepped forward. He looked good, better than he had looked in years, which only served to make me angrier. He was wearing boat shoes and linen like he was starring in a bad romantic comedy. "Hello, Aaron," he said too calmly. I felt my heart rate spike. My Apple Watch probably thought I was having a cardiac event. "Christopher, what in God's name are you doing here? Did you forget the gate code to the parking garage or something?" Nancy giggled, a high, nervous sound I'd never heard her make before. "Oh honey, surprise, Christopher's actually joining us. We decided to make this a double celebration." I remember staring at them completely dumbfounded. I felt my vision blur slightly, like when you stand up too fast. "Wait, what, Nancy? We booked a standard balcony room. There are 2 beds. Unless one of you plans on sleeping on the balcony with the seagulls, this is not a surprise." Christopher had the nerve, the sheer audacity to interrupt me. "Don't worry about the arrangements, Aaron. We upgraded. We're actually in the Royal Suite, 14th deck, very spacious. And we decided to treat you. You're actually in the room Nancy and I originally booked. We just swapped the reservation." I was already halfway through the 5 stages of grief and had landed squarely on rage. "You swapped the reservation? Nancy, you told me you were financially strapped. You were asking me to spot you $43.67 for a Trader Joe's run just 2 weeks ago." This is where the third player steps in. Aiden Flores, 48M, who I had never met before but who was standing a little too close to Christopher and Nancy, adjusted his silk scarf and gave me a pitying look. Aiden, as I would soon discover, is a total social climber, constantly name-dropping people he met for 30 seconds at a country club. "Ah, you must be Aaron," Aiden said, extending a perfectly manicured hand. "Aiden Flores, I'm Christopher's financial consultant, and frankly, darling, Christopher is anything but strapped. We've had quite a windfall lately." He then winked at Christopher. I ignored Aiden entirely. My focus was on Nancy. "Nancy, what is going on?" We were supposed to be sharing Ben and Jerry's and watching Love is Blind reruns and making fun of Christopher's new terrible girlfriend, which I thought was some woman named Tiffany with an I. Nancy's lower lip started to tremble, but it wasn't the trembling of sorrow, it was the trembling of someone trying to hold back a triumphant smirk. "Aaron," she whispered, grabbing Christopher's hand, "Tiffany with an I never existed. It was me. It's always been me. And Christopher and I are actually celebrating 2 things. The engagement," she flashed a massive, ugly diamond ring that looked like it cost more than my 2018 Honda Civic, "and well, the baby." And then she placed Christopher's hand right on her stomach. My jaw literally dropped, like cartoon character jaw drop. I think I made a sound like a deflating balloon. Christopher had the nerve to look tenderly at Nancy. "We've known for about 6 weeks. It's why we had to wait until the divorce was final to tell you, Aaron. We didn't want any drama." Drama? I didn't want any drama. They literally orchestrated a surprise couples cruise where I am the third wheel to my ex-husband and my supposed best friend who is now claiming to be 6 weeks pregnant, which is exactly 1 week before my divorce was final. The math wasn't mathing. 6 weeks, I repeated, my voice high and brittle. Nancy, you know Christopher had a vasectomy 10 years ago, right? After our daughter was born, he has literally 0 swimmers. We had to use an IUD and condoms for 3 years because he was terrified of a surprise accident. He made me watch the documentary about the procedure. It was called Snip Snip Hooray. Aiden, the social climber, snorted a laugh and then quickly covered it up with a cough. Nancy turned bright red, but she rallied fast. That's the thing about conspiracy theorists. They are excellent at immediate, unbelievable justification. That's just what the man wants you to believe, Aaron. Christopher actually never went through with it. He just told you he did because, well, he wanted to be careful about your insurance deductible. This was a next-level lie, a lie so ridiculous it defied explanation. I started cackling. It was not a happy cackle. It was the sound of a woman losing her mind in the Miami port terminal. A vasectomy is not a conspiracy theory, Nancy. It's an outpatient procedure. He sent me the invoice for $85 for the copay. I literally put it in our QuickBooks under medical. Christopher stepped in, his voice suddenly hard. That's enough, Aaron. We are happy. We are building a life. And we upgraded your room and paid for your first 3 drinks, so please just try to be happy for us. Happy for them. I felt like I was going to throw up the 2 Taco Bell breakfast burritos I'd stressing that morning. I tried to get a hold of myself. I looked at Nancy, really looked at her. Her eyes were darting everywhere. This wasn't the Nancy I knew. This was manic. Okay, I said, leaning in close so only she could hear. Tell me one thing, just one honest thing. Did you know he canceled our shared Hulu and Disney Plus accounts the day before the divorce finalized? Or did he tell you he forgot to pay the $18.99 monthly fee too? She flinched. She knew. I grabbed my luggage. Fine, you want to play this ridiculous game? I'll take my complimentary room swap, thank you very much, and I will be avoiding the 14th deck like it's a hive of government spies, Nancy. I stormed off, leaving them standing there with Aiden the social climber beaming next to them. The next few days were pure hell. The ship felt smaller and smaller. Every time I tried to relax by the pool, I would hear Nancy's high-pitched laugh followed by Christopher's condescending chuckle. They were everywhere. I saw them holding hands at the Olive Garden on the ship. Yes, there is an Olive Garden, NGL. I saw them taking nauseatingly staged photos for Instagram stories. I tried calling my daughter back home, but she was busy dealing with her own drama. I spent 3 hours in my tiny, now depressing cabin watching my iPhone storage fill up with screenshots of Nancy's extremely suspicious pregnancy announcement post. The universe is giving us a miracle. Cruise baby daddy read. I was devastated, but also confused. The vasectomy was a fact. Christopher was a liar, yes, but Nancy was too smart to fall for something this transparent, right? She spent years yelling at me for relying on Netflix and Amazon, claiming they were tracking my brainwaves. Now she was going to have a miracle baby with my broke breadcrumbing ex-husband? Something was seriously off. I decided I needed evidence, real evidence, not just suspicion. I spent most of Tuesday night drinking cheap wine and reading Reddit threads about fake pregnancies. It was dark but necessary research. The threads mentioned things like padding, ultrasound scams, and insemination conspiracies. I was spiraling. The next morning, Wednesday, I was supposed to meet Nancy for a mandatory prepaid Friends Forever mixology class. I decided to use the opportunity to snoop. I pretended to get seasick right before the class started. I texted Nancy, I'm serious, going to throw up. You go ahead, I need meds from the pharmacy. Nancy replied immediately, OMG, are you okay? I knew this boat was a toxic delivery system for 5G tracking devices. I am serious about this, Aaron. I waited 15 minutes, checked my Find My iPhone, and saw she was firmly on deck 6 in the main lounge. Perfect. I made a beeline for deck 14, the royal suite. I knew Christopher kept a spare key card in the magnetic holder on the outside of their door because he literally cannot remember passwords or access codes to save his life. Past me knew all his worst habits. I found the card, swiped it, and slipped inside. The suite was enormous, grossly, offensively large. There was a dining table, a massive balcony, and a walk-in closet. I was hunting for anything: fake pregnancy pads, a suspicious pill bottle, an actual paternity test result proving the vasectomy was reversed. I went straight for Nancy's suitcase. I tore through the clothes, the horrifying caftans, the essential oils she insisted cured everything. Nothing obvious. Then I checked the walk-in closet. Light flickered weirdly. Christopher's clothes were hung up neatly. Nancy must have done that. He'd never. I noticed a large, oddly shaped box tucked behind a pile of bathrobes. It was labeled Aiden Flores & Co. Inventory. I pulled it out. It was a brand new Ring indoor camera. Wait, why would they bring an indoor camera on a cruise ship? I opened it up. It was still in its plastic wrap, but tucked underneath the camera itself was a small, white envelope. My hands started shaking again. I ripped it open. Inside were 2 things: a receipt from a very specific small-town pharmacy I recognized from near our old house, and a single, printed-out sheet of paper. The receipt was dated 2 days after the divorce was finalized and was for a specific brand of hormone blocker used to mimic pregnancy symptoms in older women. The cost was $347. The printed paper was a list, typed in Christopher's typical courier font. It read, Cruise Plan Operation Golden Ticket 1. Reveal engagement pregnancy immediately, Nancy handles. 2. Establish relationship legitimacy with Aiden. He handles the initial introductions. 3. Secure the $200,000 promissory loan from Mrs. Henderson. Aiden to confirm deposit timeline by 5:30 p.m. Thursday. 4. Get Aaron off the ship by Friday. She cannot see the ring cam footage when we sync it. Ring cam footage. What the actual hell did a ring camera have to do with getting a loan from someone named Mrs. Henderson? I heard a click outside the door. I froze, crouching behind the bathrobes. Someone was definitely coming back. I frantically shoved the evidence in my pocket and tried to slide the camera box back behind the robes. The door burst open. It wasn't Nancy. It was Aiden Flores 48M, the social climber. He was looking at his phone, frowning. Oh, thank God, he sighed, relieved, not even looking at me. I thought the Wi-Fi was down again. I need to make sure the upload is clean before Christopher gets back. That footage has to look perfect or the whole thing falls apart. He walked straight past me to the desk, completely ignoring the fact that I was actively hiding in the closet. He pulled out a large, expensive-looking laptop and opened it. He muttered to himself, the timing has to be precise. Tuesday at 4:00 a.m. I realized he hadn't seen me yet. I was still obscured by the open closet door. I slowly reached for my phone to silently record whatever this maniac was doing. Aiden typed a complex password and the screen filled with a video feed. It was clearly footage from a Ring doorbell camera. The camera was pointed at the front door of apartment 3B, my old apartment 3B. The screen showed the exact date and time, Tuesday, 5 weeks ago, 4:00 a.m. The footage showed Christopher walking out of the apartment looking guilty, holding a small bag. Then he paused, turned around, and looked directly into the lens. He looked absolutely devastated. He pulled out his phone and started recording himself. I could see the text on the screen below the video. No audio on this footage yet, but look at his face. Devastation. Then the video on the laptop screen skipped forward and the timestamp jumped to 4:15 a.m. Nancy, still in a bathrobe, came stumbling out the door of apartment 3B. She was clearly upset, crying dramatically and clutching something to her chest. She looked right at the camera and mouthed something that looked suspiciously like, "It's all ruined." I watched in horror as Aiden started manipulating the timeline bar on the video. He clicked on a folder labeled Audio Overlay 2. He turned up the laptop volume slightly to check the feed and I heard Christopher's voice, the one from the 4:00 a.m. clip, loud and clear, but the words were completely synthesized and fake. Christopher's fake voice said, full of despair, "I can't believe this happened. It's too late. I have to go. I have to leave her forever even though she is carrying my child." Aiden leaned back, satisfied. Perfect. Henderson will buy it hook, line, and sinker. I understood then. The baby wasn't for Christopher and Nancy's future happiness. It was a leverage tool, a fake life insurance scam. And the Ring camera evidence wasn't to prove Christopher was leaving me. It was being manipulated to prove he was leaving me because Nancy was secretly pregnant with his baby before the divorce was final, thus giving him legal and financial cover for whatever enormous loan Aiden was trying to secure from Mrs. Henderson. And they were going to upload the perfected footage before I could get back home to see the real Ring footage from my actual apartment. They needed me gone. My phone was still pointed at the laptop screen recording the manipulated video. I was shaking so hard the phone almost slipped. Aiden finally looked up from the screen, stretched, and his eyes landed directly on me, hiding partially behind the door in the closet. His smug, social climber face went instantly white with terror. "You," he gasped. "How long have you been in here?" I didn't answer. I just backed slowly out of the closet, my phone still recording, my blood running cold with the realization that they might be criminals and I was holding the key to their entire plan. I held up the printed list Id found. "Get Aaron off the ship by Friday?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Why? Because you're about to show a rich old woman fake footage of my ex-husband abandoning me and my best friend to get her life insurance payout." "What the hell, Aiden?" Aiden surged to his feet, knocking the laptop slightly. His smile was gone, replaced by pure panic. "Give me that now. You don't understand what you're interfering with, Aaron. You need to forget everything you saw." He started walking towards me. I knew I couldn't fight a man half my age who was clearly unhinged. I looked around wildly. I had the physical evidence and the live recording. I turned and sprinted towards the door, ripping the key card from the slot. I burst out into the hallway on deck 14, hearing Aiden scream behind me, "Stop her, she has the evidence." I was running full tilt towards the emergency stairwell, adrenaline pumping so hard I thought my lungs would burst. I could hear Aiden's footsteps echoing behind me faster than mine. I made it down to deck 12 and slammed through the fire door just as I heard another voice join the chase, Christopher's, sounding furious. "Aaron, get back here. You are ruining everything." "Nancy, call security." I threw myself down the stairs, 3 at a time, landing awkwardly and twisting my ankle. I didn't care, I just kept running. I had to get to a safe place with Wi-Fi to upload this footage before they caught me. I raced towards the darkest corner of the ship I could think of, the public laundry room on deck 5. I stumbled inside, breathless, and hid behind a row of industrial washing machines, my ankle screaming in pain. I checked my phone. I had the file. I had the evidence. But the ship Wi-Fi was garbage. It was loading at 1%. Suddenly, I heard heavy footsteps stop right outside the laundry room door. The door slowly started to swing inward. "Aaron," Christopher's voice was low and menacing, directly on the other side of the washing machine. "I know you're in here, just give us the phone. This can still be easy." I looked at the loading bar on my phone, still at 1%. I had to buy time. I whispered into my phone, recording. "Aiden Flores, Christopher Reed, and Nancy Young are involved in financial fraud and conspiracy to commit insurance fraud on the Oasis of the Seas. Nancy is not pregnant. They are manipulating Ring camera evidence. The original footage will expose them." I didn't even know if that was enough, but I was running out of seconds. Then I heard Nancy's voice, surprisingly close. "She's behind the washing machines, Christopher. And tell her if she destroys this for us, she's going to find out what really happens to people who cross the global elite. She doesn't understand the power structure." The loading bar hit 2%. I heard the clang of metal as Christopher started moving the washing machine machines aside to find me, and I knew I had about 30 seconds before they were right on top of me. I thought about throwing the phone, but then I'd lose the evidence. I thought about screaming, but we were on a ship surrounded by their cronies. I closed my eyes, terrified, and sent the file to the only person I knew would believe me, my divorce lawyer. I prayed he was awake. The machine closest to me scraped across the floor with a deafening screech. Christopher's face appeared, sweat dripping, his eyes wild with fury. "You really shouldn't have done that, Aaron," he snarled, reaching for my wrist. The loading bar hit 3%, and then just as Christopher's fingers clamped around my arm, the Wi-Fi icon vanished. The connection was gone. He yanked the phone out of my hand. I screamed. "Aiden," Christopher yelled, crushing the phone in his grip. "Did the upload go through?" Aiden's voice from outside the room. "We cut the ship's public Wi-Fi access just now. She couldn't have sent anything. We're safe." Nancy walked into the laundry room, dusting off her caftan. She looked smugly down at me, still hiding behind the industrial machines. "Oh, Aaron," she said, her voice dripping with pity. "You should have listened to the warnings about big tech tracking you. Now we have a slight problem. We need to know exactly what you recorded before we sync our perfect timeline footage at 5:30 p.m. today. And we have 4 hours to make sure you won't interrupt that appointment with Mrs. Henderson." I looked up at my ex-husband and my ex-best friend standing over me in the middle of a cruise ship with a phone full of vital evidence that hadn't fully uploaded, and I realized I was in actual serious danger. I was trapped on the high seas with two people who were willing to commit serious federal crimes for a $200,000 promissory note. My chest was tight. I couldn't breathe. "What are you going to do?" I choked out. Christopher smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Well, first we're going to check you into the infirmary. You seem terribly stressed, Aaron, very seasick. It's so sad when these things happen right before disembarkation." He grabbed my arm and started pulling me out of the laundry room. I looked wildly around, knowing that if I went to the infirmary, I'd be stuck there until the ship docked, unable to contact anyone, and the criminal scheme would proceed without interference. And I wouldn't get to see the actual, original ring footage to prove the real timeline. I fought back, kicking and screaming, but they were too strong. As they dragged me down the hallway towards the infirmary on deck 4, Nancy leaned down and whispered in my ear, "It's not actually a baby, Aaron. It's a briefcase full of cash, and you're not getting a dime." They opened the door to the infirmary. It was sterile, quiet, and completely empty except for a very sleepy-looking nurse playing a game on her tablet. "We have an emergency," Christopher announced, dragging me inside. "Severe seasickness and anxiety. She needs to be sedated immediately." I managed to shove my hand into my pocket and felt the one thing I had left, the printed list showing their whole plan. I palmed it tightly. As the sleepy nurse slowly reached for a syringe, I knew I had to get away, and I had to find a stable connection to verify if that 3% upload actually made it to my lawyer, or if I had just lost my only shot at proving they were criminals and getting justice. I desperately needed the actual ring camera footage from home, and I needed to expose the fake pregnancy before Mrs. Henderson signed that check at 5:30 p.m. How the hell was I going to get out of this room, off this ship, and onto the internet before they finalized this massive fraud? I was trapped, terrified, and they were about to drug me into silence. I am literally still shaking. I'm not on the cruise ship anymore, thank God, but I need to document this entire horrific sequence before my brain completely short-circuits and I start believing Nancy's theories about 5G mind control. Okay, so I was being dragged into the infirmary on deck 4. Christopher was crushing my arm and Nancy was gloating about the briefcase of cash. I was trapped. The sleepy nurse was reaching for a syringe which, let's be real, was probably filled with enough sedative to knock out a rhinoceros. I had the list in my pocket, the one detailing Operation Golden Ticket. That list was my only concrete evidence now that Christopher had physically destroyed my phone. I had to get away, and fast. As Christopher tightened his grip, I saw the medical waste bin right next to the nurse's station. It was one of those big stainless steel things that looked heavy. I did the only thing I could think of. I screamed, "I need to throw up right now. I mean, I have to go. It's violent. I'm going to ruin your shoes, Christopher." Christopher, who has an extremely sensitive relationship with his expensive boat shoes. They cost $400, I remember, because he tried to make me pay half. Hesitated for 1 second. That was my chance. I used the momentum of his pulling and my twisted ankle to launch myself sideways, grabbing the rim of the stainless steel waste bin with my free hand and pulling it down with all my might. Clang! The bin hit the floor with a terrifying, deafening noise. Syringes, used gauze, and what looked disturbingly like a used catheter scattered everywhere. The sleepy nurse shrieked, dropping her tablet. Christopher let go of my arm, clutching his ears. "Aaron, what in God's name is wrong with you?" I didn't stick around for the answer. I scrambled over the scattered medical debris and shot out the infirmary door. I still couldn't run well because of my ankle, but sheer terror is an amazing propellant. I knew I couldn't go back up to deck 14 and I couldn't risk the elevator. I hobbled toward the staff-only exit near the galley, which I knew was usually unsupervised because the crew used it for smoking breaks. I burst through the fire door and found myself in a narrow, windowless corridor that smelled intensely of disinfectant and burnt toast. I kept moving, leaning heavily on the wall, until I reached a small, unused linen closet. I shoved myself inside and collapsed onto a pile of scratchy sheets, pulling the door closed just as I heard Christopher's voice echoing down the hall. "Check the stern side, she can't have gone far." I sat there, gasping, checking the time. It was 1:45 p.m. Mrs. Henderson was due to sign the loan documents at 5:30 p.m. I had less than 4 hours. My phone was gone, crushed. I had no way to communicate, no way to check if that 3% upload made it through, and no way to get the original ring footage from home. I was stuck on a ship that was actively trying to silence me. I pulled the crinkled list out of my pocket. Reading it again confirmed the horror. Cruise plan operation Golden Ticket 1. Reveal engagement pregnancy immediately Nancy handles. 2. Establish relationship legitimacy with Aiden. He handles the initial introductions. 3. Secure the $200,000 promissory loan from Mrs. Henderson. Aiden to confirm deposit timeline by 5:30 p.m. Thursday. 4. Get Erin off the ship by Friday. She cannot see the ring cam footage when we sink it. Okay, deep breaths. I needed a phone, stable Wi-Fi, and a plan to get off the ship now. We weren't docking until Saturday morning. I waited 20 minutes until the footsteps faded. Then I peeked out. The hallway was empty. I needed an ally. Nancy, obviously, not Christopher, not Aiden. I needed someone anonymous maybe, or someone who had absolutely nothing to lose. I crept out of the closet and started heading toward the central atrium, the last place Christopher and Nancy would look for me because it was too public. I walked past a group of vacationers looking at the duty-free shop. I saw a young guy, maybe 19, sitting alone at a small table, totally engrossed in his massive gaming laptop, headphones on, typing furiously. A total introvert, perfect. I approached him cautiously. I leaned over, making sure my voice was calm despite my heart trying to escape my ribcage. "Excuse me," I whispered. He didn't hear me. I tried again, tapping him lightly on the shoulder. He jumped a foot, pulling off his noise-canceling headphones. He looked at me annoyed. He was wearing a shirt that said Level 47 Mage. "Yeah?" he asked, clearly irritated. I interrupted his grinding. "I need your help," I said, leaning closer, speaking quickly. "I need to borrow your phone and a minute of your Wi-Fi, and I need to do it without anyone seeing. It's a matter of financial fraud and I'm being tracked by my ex-husband." He blinked at me, processing. He probably thought I was having a mental breakdown. "Tracked," he repeated, instantly intrigued, the gamer in him sensing a real-life mission. "Like GPS tracked? Worse, social climbers and conspiracy theorists," I hissed. "They smashed my phone. I need to contact my lawyer in New York and send an emergency file." He looked at my wild hair, my twisted ankle, and the genuine desperation in my eyes. Then he looked at the expensive-looking laptop. He shrugged. "All right, lady, this sounds like an epic quest. Here." He handed me his burner phone, a generic Android I've never seen before. "Wi-Fi is terrible on this deck, but I have a satellite uplink booster for my raid group. It's stable. Use it fast." I could have kissed him. "Thank you. You saved my life." I opened the Gmail app. The anxiety was crippling. Did the 3% upload make it? I quickly typed in my lawyer's email address, Stephen R. Cohen-esque. I wrote the shortest, most urgent email of my life. "Stephen, I'm on the cruise. Christopher and Nancy are committing massive financial fraud using fake pregnancy and manipulated ring footage for $200K loan. They destroyed my phone. Did you receive an attachment from me at 1:30 p.m. EST? Please respond ASAP. I am in danger." I hit send. It zipped through instantly thanks to Mage Boy's booster. I handed the phone back to him. "Thank you, I have to go." "Wait," he said, holding up a hand. "If they're tracking you and they smashed your phone, how are you going to stop them? You need to find the real footage, right? It's on my Ring account at my old apartment, 3B. I need the login credentials," I explained. "You need to remote desktop into your home computer, right?" he asked, adjusting his glasses. "The Ring security footage is locked behind the desktop app, not just the phone app if you want the originals. They're smart, they knew that." I hadn't even thought of that, but he was right. Christopher had the Ring doorbell installed specifically because it had a desktop login for better archive access. Past me was always so worried about package thieves, I never realized I was installing surveillance on myself. "I don't have my laptop," I admitted. Mageboy pointed to his massive gaming rig. "I have secure VPN access. If you can remember your login credentials, I can bypass their network blockage and get you onto your desktop." I hesitated. Giving a stranger remote access to my home computer, this felt like a terrible idea. But the alternative was letting Christopher and Nancy commit felony fraud and ruin Mrs. Henderson's life, not to mention mine. "My ex changed all the passwords recently," I admitted, frustrated. "But I have a key phrase. It's always the same key phrase followed by the current year, then ex-wife is the best backward." Mage Boy didn't even flinch, he just started typing. Within 5 minutes he had navigated through two-factor authentication. I had to guess the answer to "what was the name of your first dog?" It was Barnaby NGL. I hated that dog, and suddenly my desktop appeared on his gigantic screen. It was so weird to see my cluttered icons and the background photo of my daughter on a stranger's laptop in the middle of the Caribbean. I navigated to the Ring folder. I found the archive backup folder. "The footage you need is from Tuesday, 5 weeks ago. Between 4:00 a.m. and 4:30 a.m., I told him. He clicked the timestamp. The video loaded almost instantly, perfectly clear thanks to his satellite connection. This was the original footage, unedited. It showed Christopher walking out of apartment 3B at 4:00 a.m. He looked nervous, holding a small bag, the one with his pathetic belongings. He paused at the door, looked straight at the camera, and muttered something, though the original footage had no audio recording setup, just video. Then at 4:15 a.m. Nancy stumbled out. She was crying, clutching a tissue. She walked right up to the camera and mouthed something. Mage Boy paused the video on Nancy's face. "Okay, so what did she mouth? Can you read lips?" I stared intently at the screen. Nancy looked wrecked, genuinely upset, not theatrical. She mouthed 3 words clearly, even without sound. The test failed. My stomach twisted into a knot. The fake pregnancy wasn't just a lie, it was a desperate reaction to a real failure. She must have thought she was pregnant, or she was hoping to be, right around the time I was finalizing the divorce. And when the test came back negative, she panicked and cooked up this whole scam with Christopher and Aiden. The hormone blockers made sense now. She was trying to mimic the symptoms because the reality wasn't happening. Christopher's fake audio recording said he was leaving me because she was pregnant, but the real footage showed her devastated because the test failed. This was the key. I need that file, I told Mage Boy, the original file, all 20 minutes of it. He nodded, already dragging the file into a compressed zip folder. Sending it to your Gmail now, it will take 30 seconds. We waited. 30 long seconds, ping. File sent, he confirmed. I quickly logged out of my computer and thanked him profusely. I owed him my life, frankly. Stay safe, Mage, I said. He grinned. Always you should post about this later though on Reddit. People need to know about these scams. Oh, trust me, I plan on posting the full glorious update, I promised. I looked down at the Android phone. I had 2 new emails, one from Stephen Cohen, my lawyer. The other, from a number I didn't recognize, was a text message that had just come through. I opened Stephen's email first. The subject line was simply RE emergency attachment. The body of the email read, Aaron Holy SHT. The 3% upload contained the first 7 seconds of Aiden manipulating the audio track over the ring footage and the first line of the cruise plan. It's enough for a federal wire fraud investigation. Do not contact them. Do not confront them. Get off that ship now. I'm calling the Port Authority in Miami and the FBI right now. Do you have physical evidence of the hormone blockers? Stay safe. Yes, the 3% was enough. I was officially a material witness in a federal investigation. This wasn't just messy divorce drama anymore. It was RICO territory, NGL. I quickly checked the text message on Mage Boy's phone. It was from an unknown number. Aaron, it's me, Mrs. Henderson. Aiden sent me a pre-meeting document earlier this morning. It mentions the ring camera and the pre-divorce pregnancy. I found your number through an old mutual friend. I think this is a scam. I need you to confirm before 5:30 p.m. Call me back if you can. Do not sign the loan. Mrs. Henderson, the universe was finally working in my favor. I quickly typed out a response to Mrs. Henderson. Mrs. H, this is Aaron. I am trapped on the cruise. They are criminals. Nancy is not pregnant. The ring footage is fake. I have the original proof. I just emailed my lawyer and the FBI. Do not sign anything. Wait for contact from Stephen Cohen-esque. I hit send. Now I had the evidence. The lawyer was involved and the victim was warned. But I was still stuck on the ship and they were still actively hunting for me. And that 5:30 p.m. deadline was looming. I had to get off the ship. I thanked Mage Boy again, returning his phone, and slipped into the crowd near the arcade. I needed to get to the guest services desk, but I couldn't risk being seen by Christopher or Nancy. I decided to try a disguise. I was a 57-year-old woman with a bad ankle, so my options were limited. I found the small gift shop near the central bar. I grabbed a gigantic, ridiculous, bright yellow floppy sun hat and a pair of reflective, mirrored sunglasses. I paid for them with the emergency $50 bill I kept folded inside my bra, a single-parent warrior trick. I put on the hat and sunglasses. I probably looked more conspicuous than before, but in a crazy rich tourist way, not in a federal witness way. I walked stiffly towards the guest services desk. The ship felt smaller and smaller. Every time I heard a voice raised, I flinched, sure it was Christopher. I approached the desk, where a very cheerful young woman named Bianca was helping an elderly couple book a specialty dining reservation. I waited impatiently. Next, please, Bianca chirped. I leaned over the counter, speaking in a low, conspiratorial voice, my face mostly hidden by the hat. Bianca, I need to disembark immediately, I said. She blinked. Oh, ma'am, we're still at sea. We won't dock in Miami until Saturday. This is an emergency. It's a life-or-death situation involving my ex-husband and best friend trying to commit insurance fraud using falsified medical information and a terrible captain, I whispered. Bianca's eyes widened, but she kept a professional smile plastered on. Ma'am, I really can't authorize an unscheduled disembarkation unless it's a critical medical or family emergency. It is a critical emergency, I insisted. They are trying to secure a $200,000 promissory loan by 5:30 p.m. using fake pregnancy data and a manipulated ring camera video. I pulled out the crinkled list from my pocket and slammed it down on the counter. This is their plan. Note item number 3. Note the 5:30 p.m. deadline. Note item number 4, which is get Aaron off the ship by Friday. They are trying to drug me in the infirmary right now. You need to call the captain and the authorities. Bianca picked up the list, her face pale. She read it, then looked at me, then looked wildly around the atrium. I need to verify this, she whispered, picking up her phone and dialing an internal number. I felt a sudden cold dread wash over me. I glanced toward the elevator banks, and there he was, Aiden Flores 48M, the social climber, walking out of the elevator, impeccably dressed, talking rapidly into his earpiece. He was scanning the crowd, obviously looking for me. Dropped to my knees behind the counter, my large sun hat doing absolutely nothing to conceal me. Aiden is here, I hissed at Bianca. He's the financial consultant. You need to hide me. Call the authorities now. Bianca, bless her heart, was frozen in panic. Aiden spotted the large yellow sun hat bobbing behind the counter. He stopped talking, his eyes narrowed, and he started walking briskly toward the guest services desk. Bianca, I urged. Just tell him I'm not here. Say I went to the pool. Aiden reached the counter, planting both of his perfectly manicured hands on the marble. He gave Bianca a charming, terrifying smile. Excuse me, miss, Aiden purred. Have you seen a woman, mid-50s, dark hair, very agitated? She's been having a severe mental episode and needs urgent medical care. Bianca looked straight at Aiden, then down at me, huddled on the floor, then back at Aiden. She swallowed hard. No, sir, she said, her voice shaking slightly. No one like that has been here. Aiden wasn't buying it. He leaned closer to Bianca. Look, she's a troubled ex-wife trying to sabotage a very important family matter. She's delusional, claiming fraud and making up stories about a vasectomy. Just tell me if you've seen Aaron Brown. I heard Christopher's voice join them, rushing in from the starboard side. Aiden, did you find her? We only have a few hours left. I was trapped behind the desk. Suddenly, Bianca's face changed. She looked past Christopher and Aiden, and her eyes lit up with professional relief. Excuse me, gentlemen, Bianca said, slightly louder. I think you need to speak to security. Two massive, terrifyingly uniformed ship security guards materialized immediately, flanking Christopher and Aiden. "Gentlemen," the first guard, a man named Marcus, said firmly, "we have received multiple complaints regarding harassment and unauthorized access to restricted areas. We also received a very specific distress call regarding potential fraud." Christopher went pale, but he rallied fast, slipping into his typical condescending persona. "Nonsense, this is a simple domestic dispute. My former wife is clearly unstable and needs to be in the infirmary. She's making up stories." Marcus looked at Bianca, who gave a nearly imperceptible nod, pointing toward the crumpled list on the counter. The second guard, a tiny woman with a no-nonsense bun, picked up the list. She read the bold print, specifically secure the $200,000 promissory loan from Mrs. Henderson. "A $200,000 promissory note," the guard repeated flatly, "and a fake pregnancy timeline related to a vasectomy. Sirs, we need you to come with us to the security office. We have contacted the port captain." Aiden looked absolutely furious. "You can't do this. This is slander. I am a reputable financial consultant. You're not going to ruin my life again, Christopher," I yelled from my hiding spot behind the counter. Christopher actually lunged over the counter, trying to reach me. Marcus immediately blocked him. "You're under detention, sir," Marcus stated, grabbing Christopher's arm. Christopher struggled violently. "This is insane. You're falling for her lies. Nancy, where's Nancy? She'll back me up. She's carrying my child." Just then, Nancy walked up, looking confused and slightly frantic. She was still wearing the awful kaftan. "What is going on?" Nancy demanded. "Christopher, why are they touching you? This is a deep state conspiracy to keep the truth about the vasectomy buried." Marcus looked at Nancy with utter exhaustion. "Ma'am, are you indeed 6 weeks pregnant?" Nancy puffed out her chest. "Absolutely, it's a miracle. You'll never understand the power of the natural body overcoming the surgical industrial complex." The tiny security guard sighed, looking at Nancy's slightly padded stomach. "Ma'am, we have contacted the legal team. We need you to come with us now." As they were being led away, Christopher tried one last desperate plea, his voice cracked with panic. "Aaron, give me the footage. I'll pay for your lawyer. Just don't let the Henderson deal fall through." "Too late, Christopher," I yelled. "Stephen already has the file. The FBI knows about your fake baby and your fake audio track. Have fun explaining. Snip snip hooray," to the federal court. They were dragged off toward the internal security office. I slowly climbed out from behind the counter, rubbing my ankle. Bianca looked at me, completely overwhelmed. "I'm calling the captain, Aaron. You need to be off the ship now." So that was Wednesday, about 2:30 p.m. What happened next was a blur of paperwork, confused phone calls, and my absolute refusal to speak to Christopher, Nancy, or Aiden, who were all sitting in the security office throwing accusations at each other. The Port Authority determined that since a federal crime wire fraud was alleged, and since the victim, Mrs. Henderson, was successfully warned, they had enough probable cause to detain the trio until the ship docked on Saturday morning. The captain arranged for me to disembark at the next port of call, which was Cozumel, Mexico, later that afternoon under the pretense of a family emergency. The thought of being stranded in Cozumel briefly terrified me, but it was better than being trapped with them. The captain was amazing, NGL. He even comped my airfare back to NYC and gave me a voucher for a free drink, which I promptly used on a truly massive margarita at the port terminal. I landed back in New York on Thursday morning, jet-lagged, exhausted, and limping heavily. I went straight to Stephen Cohen's office. Stephen, who looks exactly like the most cynical divorce lawyer you can imagine, was absolutely giddy. "Aaron, you secured the 3 things we needed," he said, gesturing dramatically to his massive desk. "First, the manipulated audio footage from the 3% upload. Second, the full original ring footage, which shows Nancy admitting the test failed. And third, the cooperation of the victim, Mrs. Henderson, who has already filed a sworn affidavit about the promissory loan." Stephen explained that because the manipulation of the ring footage was done using Aiden's laptop, across state lines and utilizing wire communication, and was intended to defraud Mrs. Henderson of $200,000, it was instantly a federal fraud case. The fake pregnancy was just the very weird, elaborate cover story. I was exhausted, but I was also running on pure adrenaline. I finally felt a wave of relief crash over me. I beat them. I spent the next 2 weeks navigating the fallout. It was messy. It was expensive. It was emotionally draining. 2 weeks later, the immediate fallout: I'm sitting in my friend Maria's spare room, typing this on her spare laptop. My apartment 3B lease was ending anyway, and frankly, I never wanted to set foot in that place again, knowing the surveillance that had been going on. I'm actively looking for a new small place. I'm prioritizing peace over space, TBH. Christopher Reed, 65M. He is currently out on bond, awaiting trial. Stephen thinks they have an open and shut case, but Christopher is trying to claim he was coerced by Nancy and Aiden. LOL. Classic breadcrumber trying to weasel out of consequences. He called me 74 times after being released, trying to apologize and claiming that the whole thing was Nancy's idea, and he only went along with it because he missed the feeling of being a father. He even had the audacity to ask if I would meet him for coffee to rebuild our friendship. I blocked him on everything, including Venmo, which he used to try and send me 1-cent payments with little messages attached. Nancy Young, 54F. This is the hardest part. My supposed best friend. She's also out on bond, but she's completely spiraling. She keeps texting my daughter, who thankfully blocks her immediately, and my mutual friends, claiming that I am working for the FBI, that the judge is a lizard person, and that the only reason the truth came out is because of the 5G tower on the cruise ship. Her character development went straight into the toilet NGL. She fully leaned into the conspiracy theorist role as a justification for her crimes. Steven says she's trying to claim diminished capacity, which honestly might be true at this point. I mourn the loss of our friendship, but I realize now that Nancy wasn't my friend. She was just someone who was always ready to exploit my vulnerabilities. The betrayal still stings worse than the fraud. Aiden Flores, 48M, Aiden the social climber, is in the most trouble. Steven says he was the mastermind who set up the fake company, convinced Nancy to use the hormone blockers, and orchestrated the Ring camera manipulation specifically to bypass lending restrictions with Mrs. Henderson. He thought he was brilliant. The FBI seized his expensive laptop and his ridiculous silk scarf collection. He's facing the most serious charges for wire fraud and conspiracy. I actually saw a picture of him on a local news report looking absolutely shattered in a cheap suit, and it gave me a moment of satisfaction, I won't lie. Mrs. Henderson, she's fine. She was extremely grateful. She's actually hired Steven to pursue legal action against Aiden for attempted fraud. She sent me a huge basket of gourmet cheeses and a gift card to Target, which felt appropriate for the single-parent warrior who spends too much time there. Financial and emotional reality, it hasn't been easy. The divorce is still finalized, thank goodness, but because of the fraud investigation, the division of marital assets is now tangled up in federal proceedings. Christopher tried to claim that the $1,700 I paid for Nancy's portion of the cruise should be considered a gift and non-refundable. Steven laughed and sent him a cease and desist letter. I lost my $1,700 and my divorce scadion was literally a nightmare, but at least I didn't fund a crime. I still have bad days. Last Tuesday, I saw a woman wearing a caftan at the grocery store and I had an actual panic attack and had to hide behind the organic kale display. I cried in the shower for 30 minutes on Friday because I realized I spent 20 years with a man who prioritized a $200,000 scam over his family and 10 years with a friend who thought I was disposable. But I'm also stronger. Remember that crappy iPhone 14 with 78% battery health? Steven used the remnants of that phone as physical evidence. I had to buy a new one, a shiny iPhone 15 Pro Max paid for entirely by me, and it has 100% battery health. It feels like a metaphor. My daughter has been my rock. She came home last weekend and helped me pack. We watched old episodes of Love is Blind and screenshotted Nancy's delusional public Facebook post together. She told me I was the strongest person she knew, which was cheesy, but I needed to hear it. The friends who stuck around, they are amazing. They came through with wine, ramen, and actual physical help packing boxes. They all agreed that Nancy was always a little too obsessed with the man and that this was her final self-destructive political statement. I've been in therapy unpacking layers of baggage. The therapist pointed out that Christopher didn't just breadcrumb me financially, he breadcrumbed me emotionally, making me constantly feel like I had to earn his love or attention. That hurts, but recognizing the pattern is the first step, right? I realized I did something I never would have done before. I put my own safety and survival first, even when it meant risking confrontation with people who were actively trying to hurt me. I'm not proud of the waste bin incident, but sometimes you just have to throw down the trash to get away. I'm moving into a studio apartment next week. It's tiny. I have to fold up the couch to use the bed. But I am paying the rent entirely myself on time without having to wait for Christopher to sort out his finances or dangling any promises. I changed the locks and the Wi-Fi password. I set up my own Ring camera, a new one obviously, but pointed outward this time. The most important thing I did, the thing that felt most like true closure, happened this morning. I got a text from a mutual acquaintance asking if I was okay and saying they had seen Christopher's mother commenting on a public post saying I was unstable. Instead of hiding or raging, I simply replied, "Please send her this screenshot." I sent a photo of the original Ring footage, the one showing Nancy mouthing the test failed. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't loud, it was just the facts. I'm still eating ramen most days. My credit score took a small hit due to the sudden shift in logistics. I still look at my new empty apartment and feel a little overwhelmed by the silence. But yesterday I watched a stupid TikTok about cats and actually laughed out loud, a real genuine laugh, and I realized I'm going to be okay. I guess this is the end of the single-parent warrior era and the beginning of the single, highly documented, technically not a fugitive woman of a certain age era. I'm thinking of getting a cat and naming him Mage. Anyway, that's the update. Don't go on cruises with your ex and your conspiracy theorist best friend, and always check your Ring camera archives. You never know when they'll save your life. We'll update if Aiden tries to contact me from prison. TBH, I kinda hope he does. I have a lot of questions about that silk scarf.